Welcome back, eighth graders. So we're moving right along with our narrative writing. So I want you to go back to Google Classroom, and we're still working on Module 2. And so when you go to Module 2, the slideshow, so we have worked on the brainstorming session right here. You've gotten some ideas from the narrative writing quilt. You learned what the story arc was like, the pattern that a story follows, and you also saw just a simple version of the Three Little Pigs and how that follows the story arc. You were supposed to have this filled out once you've chosen your topic from your brainstorming session. You were supposed to have filled this out, minus the point of view. So our focus today is going to be point of view, so you can understand this a little bit better. So after today's lesson, you should have this completely filled out, and then you should be able to go back to this video and fill in the point of view, what you plan to use for your point of view. All right, so let's go ahead and listen to the simple video that tells us what point of view is.
In Lesson 4 for narrative writing, we will be focusing now on point of view. So if you're watching this video, you have already completed a story arc for your narrative. And if you haven't done that quite yet, go ahead and pause this video and make sure to go back to complete that activity. So in this lesson, we will be discussing 4 main points of view that authors typically use to tell a story. Although there are other types of point of view, we're really only going to focus on the following for the sake of time and just making sure that you're able to choose a point of view that's going to work well for your particular narrative. So we are going to focus on first person omniscient, and omniscient means all-knowing, third person, and third person omniscient. So I want you to make sure that as we go through, you listen to the descriptions of each point of view, and then you'll complete these activities, or this activity rather, understanding point of view. So that's the in-person version and then the digital version that you see on your screen. So feel free to watch this video more than once, pause as you need to so you can write down each of these definitions as we go through them together. So let's start with first person. So first person is when the story is told from the perspective of a narrator who is speaking directly about themselves. So the reader, in this case, would not know what other characters are thinking. They're only told from the narrator's perspective. So we only hear what the narrator's thinking. That's first person. And we're going to have pronouns such as I, me, my, we, us, etc. used to indicate to us, okay, the story is in first person.
All right, middle schoolers, this might be a good time to pause the video. Let's go back to your slideshow, and you should be able to fill out the first box and make sure you summarize these 3 points. I think it's important to have that. So again, you're going to have to be going back and forth, but again, first person, it's kind of like what the title says. It's told from the perspective of a narrator speaking about himself or herself. The reader would not know what other characters are thinking. You will definitely see these pronouns, I, me, my, we, us, because that narrator is part of the story.
Well, then we have something called first person omniscient. And this is similar to first person, but there's a difference. So the story is still told from the perspective of a narrator who is not only speaking directly about themselves, but the narrator in this case is also going to know the thoughts and feelings of all the other characters at times throughout the story. So that's the omniscient part, the all-knowing. They know all the other characters' thoughts and feelings. And so we might see pronouns such as I, me, my, we, us, like we talked about, but also he, she, they, and them. So those are the types of pronouns, and other versions of those same pronouns as well that you'll see in a first person omniscient narrated story.
All right, eighth graders. So again, you might want to go back and forth. Now you should be able to fill out the box for first person omniscient. It has 2 points to it. So again, the narrator who not only is speaking directly about themselves, but also knows the thoughts and feelings of all the other characters at times. So omniscient is all knowing. So first person omniscient, they just have a little bit more knowledge than just a regular first person narrative who just talks and tells a story about themselves. These are the pronouns you might see, and then they also include he, she, they, and them. So take some time to fill out that second box on your slideshow. And again, you're taking notes because you will use this as you go through the process of writing your narrative.
Well, then we have third person. And third person is when the author is narrating the story about characters and is referring to them by name or by using third person pronouns. So pronouns that we might see here would be he, she, him, her, they, them, etc. Third person omniscient.
Okay, so sorry, going back to that one, third person, the narrator is not part of the story. All right, the narrator's telling the story about other people. And so there are 2 points to that. Make sure you get both of these 2 points down. I would definitely try to use bullet points when you're typing this. Okay, and then third person omniscient. Remember, omniscient means all-knowing. So before I start the video, maybe you should ask yourself, okay, if I know what first person omniscient is, and I know what third person is, can I figure out what third person omniscient is? I bet you can. Let's see what it says.
Very similar, except it has that all-knowing component. So here, the narrator of the story knows the thoughts and feelings of all the characters in the story. And so one thing about third person is that it might be told from the perspective of, the author. It might be told from a perspective of a narrator who's not a part of the story. So that can kind of change a little bit, but just know that with third person point of view, we're using pronouns like he, she, they, them, etc. You won't see I or me or my, those first person pronouns. So pronouns that you might see for third person omniscient are going to be the same. He, she, him, her, they, them, etc. You would know that it was omniscient because you would be learning about the thoughts and feelings of all of the characters in the story as opposed to maybe one character in the story. So after you record the definitions for each type of point of view on your handout, you'll see at the bottom of the handouts there are short quotes. And so I want you to go through those quotes and determine which point of view the author is using. And you'll just write that in the box next to that quote. So that's the activity for the 4 main points of view. And then what you'll do finally at the end of this to wrap everything up is now you are going to determine which point of view you are going to use to write your narrative.
Okay, so middle schoolers, you have a couple of things. So again, your assignment is to complete this entire thing. So if you didn't get all of the definitions down, go back and listen to the video. And you've got 4 different narrations that you need to fill in. And then the activity is you have 4 different examples, and you're going to decide which point of view the following excerpts, they're just short little excerpts, what point of view these are examples of. And you're going to type your answer just right down here where it says that. And we will go over that the next time that we meet. Then another thing that I want you to do is now I want you to go back to your story arc. And you should have this all filled in. And this is just kind of a map to show that you have thought through your story, how you're going to build that suspense with events, what's going to be the highest point of conflict, the most exciting part in the story, how you're going to start ending it, and then what kind of resolution it will be. So now you also have to think, what point of view am I going to use to tell my story? And you're going to finish typing that in there. All right? So we will see you next time.